I built my family business from the ground up, putting in 18-hour days for years. One day, my brother came in and took over, claiming it was time for a change in direction. I handled the transition, but within a month, everything fell apart. Now he's asking me for help to fix it. I built everything I had from the ground up, sacrificing sleep, family, everything. But in one moment, my brother walked in, told me it was time for a change in direction, and just like that, everything I worked for slipped through my fingers. I should have known better, but family? They know how to break you when you least expect it. I'm Michael, and for the past 12 years, this business has been my world. It started as my father's dream, but when he passed away, I took over. I promised him I would carry it forward, make it bigger, better. And I did, through every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every moment where I thought I was running on empty. This business became everything to me, my blood, my sweat, my tears. I didn't have time for anything else. No vacations, no friends, barely any family dinners. The work never stopped. But I was okay with that. I was building something that mattered. I was making something my father would have been proud of. It wasn't just about the business, it was about the legacy, the dream. Then there was Alex, my brother. He was always in the background, drifting through life, doing his own thing. He had his own path, and I never pushed him into mine. The business was never his responsibility. I thought maybe it was for the best. He didn't have the same fire, the same commitment. He never wanted the pressure. He was the free spirit, the one who did things his own way. But one day, everything changed. Alex walked into my office, sat down like it was just another meeting, but something in the air felt different. He looked at me, his face serious, his tone calm, and said the words that would change everything. "Mike, it's time for a change in direction." It caught me off guard. I thought it was just a casual conversation. But the way he said it, the way he looked at me, it wasn't casual. He wasn't asking for advice. He wasn't offering help. He was taking over. Without warning, without hesitation. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. I just sat there, frozen, wondering how everything I worked for, everything I sacrificed, could be slipping through my hands so easily. I agreed. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I thought I could trust him. Maybe I thought he could do it better. But that was the moment everything began to fall apart, and I had no idea how deep it would go. The first few days after Alex took over weren't so bad. In fact, there was a part of me that hoped I could finally take a step back. Maybe Alex had a fresh perspective, something I hadn't been able to see because I was so deep into it all. He had always been sharp, quick-witted, and could charm anyone into believing his ideas. I thought maybe this change in direction would bring the business to new heights. He moved fast, too fast. The first thing he did was change the structure. He cut down on staff, streamlined operations. He said it was necessary. I was skeptical, but I kept quiet. After all, this was his decision now, and I had promised to step back. I spent my days trying to stay out of the way, but it wasn't long before I started noticing cracks. Little things at first, things I had never allowed before. Clients not getting their calls returned, deadlines slipping, deals falling through. But I kept telling myself, it's a transition, give it time. Alex was still finding his footing. Maybe it was rough at the start, but things would get better, right? A week into it, I came into the office early one morning, as usual, hoping to get some paperwork done before the team arrived. When I walked in, I noticed something that stopped me cold. Alex's assistant was sitting at my desk, sorting through some of the files. I don't know why, but it triggered something in me, something deeper than I cared to admit. I felt a wave of anger rise in my chest. Why was she at my desk? Why wasn't she handling her own work and staying out of mine? It wasn't a major thing, I know, but it felt like a little invasion of my space, my territory, and I couldn't shake the feeling that everything I had worked for was being chipped away, piece by piece. I tried to brush it off. I thought, maybe I'm just overreacting. But it was hard to ignore the mounting tension in the office. People weren't talking like they used to. The energy was off. I could see it in their eyes when they passed me in the halls. They were nervous, hesitant. It was as if Alex's decisions were already starting to divide the team. But I stayed quiet. I had promised I wouldn't interfere. Then came the big blow. A major project we had been working on for months, a multi-million-dollar contract with a new commercial client, fell apart. I was there when the email came through. Alex had arranged the final meeting with the client, and somehow, someway, the whole thing fell apart in a matter of hours. The contract was canceled, and the client sent an email saying they were moving forward with other options. The shock of it hit me like a slap to the face. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could this happen? This was the kind of deal that could have made a real difference for the company, a deal that could have set us up for years. It wasn't just a missed opportunity, it was a blow to everything I had built. I walked into Alex's office after that email came through, trying to keep my composure. My pulse was racing, my mind spinning with the questions I couldn't answer. "Alex, what happened?" I asked, my voice tighter than I intended. He leaned back in his chair, a smug grin on his face. "It's fine, Mike. Things like this happen all the time. We'll just move on to the next one." Move on to the next one? My heart sank. It felt like he was brushing it off, treating it like it was no big deal. But it wasn't a small mistake. This was a disaster. "I don't get it," I said, frustration rising in me now. "This was a huge opportunity. How could you let it slip away like that?" Alex stood up and walked over to the window. "You don't get it. You're still thinking the old way. This company needs to be agile, to move fast. We can't waste time holding on to old deals. We've got to cut losses and move forward." I couldn't believe it. Cut losses? I had spent years building those relationships, years getting the clients to trust us, and now Alex was just throwing it all away, as if it didn't matter. "I don't think you understand," I said, my voice breaking. "This wasn't just about one deal. This was about our reputation, about everything we've built." But he didn't seem to care. His eyes were already somewhere else, already thinking about the next move, the next big opportunity. I could see it in the way he carried himself, the way his thoughts were always on something else, something bigger. He wasn't interested in the day-to-day grind. He was interested in appearing successful, in making quick moves, in taking risks with no regard for the consequences. And I realized something in that moment. I didn't recognize my brother anymore. The realization hit me hard, like a gut punch. Alex wasn't the same person I had grown up with, the person who had always been by my side. He wasn't the person who had watched me build this business step by step. He had become someone entirely different, a stranger, someone who didn't understand the sacrifices it took to keep everything running, someone who saw everything as expendable. As the days went by, more and more things started to fall apart. The staff turnover began to rise. Clients started questioning us. I was getting calls from people I had known for years, people I had worked with since the beginning, asking what was going on, what had happened to the company. I could see the cracks spreading wider and wider, and all I could do was sit back and watch it unravel. But the hardest part? The hardest part was watching Alex, my own brother, act like it didn't matter. He was calm, unfazed, like this was all part of the plan, and all I could think was, how did it get this far? How did we go from me running the show, doing it the right way, to this? How had it gone so wrong, so quickly? I wanted to step in. I wanted to scream, to take back control. But I had promised him I wouldn't interfere. I had promised to let him do things his way. And now I was paying the price. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach, a gnawing unease that wouldn't go away. Each day felt heavier than the last. I was watching the company I had built crumble under my brother's decisions, but worse than that, I was watching him crumble too. I thought I was giving him the space he needed to prove himself, but instead I was watching him flounder, making mistake after mistake, each one leaving a deeper wound in the company's reputation. I tried to stay out of it. I tried to honor the promise I made, to step aside and give Alex the opportunity to lead, but I couldn't ignore it any longer. The longer I stayed silent, the more the company suffered, and the more I stayed away, the more my brother seemed lost in the chaos he had created. One evening, just after dinner, Alex called me. His voice was different this time, not the confident, self-assured tone I had heard the last few weeks. This time, he sounded defeated. His words were rushed, filled with an urgency I hadn't heard before. "Mike, I need to talk to you. It's bad. Really bad." That's when I knew he had finally realized the mess he had made. It was too late, but at least he was finally facing the truth. He had tried to handle it on his own, but the foundation I had spent years building was now crumbling beneath him. The worst part was, I couldn't just let it go. I couldn't stand by and watch it all fall apart. I made the decision that night. I wasn't going to watch my father's legacy die on my brother's watch. No matter how much I wanted to be there for him, no matter how much I wanted him to figure it out on his own, I knew he wasn't going to. And if I didn't step in, everything we had worked for, the years of sacrifice, the blood, sweat, and tears, would be gone. So, the next morning, I walked into the office, my mind made up. I wasn't asking for permission this time. I was taking control. I wasn't going to sit idly by anymore, pretending I didn't see what was happening. Alex wasn't there yet, but I could feel the tension in the air when I walked into the building. The employees didn't even look me in the eye anymore. I could hear the whispers, the murmurs behind my back. I knew what they were saying. He's been replaced. Alex is in charge now. He's the future of this company. I walked to the back office where Alex had set up shop and stood in front of his desk. When he arrived, his face was drawn, his eyes tired, like he hadn't slept in days. I could see the weight on his shoulders, the realization that he couldn't do this on his own. But when he saw me standing there, his first instinct was to push back. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice flat, but I could hear the desperation in it. "I'm taking back control," I said, my voice steady, but with an edge. "I'm going to fix this. You're not alone in this anymore." He stared at me for a long moment, and for a brief second I thought he might snap, tell me to leave, remind me that this was his company now. But instead, he collapsed into the chair behind his desk, rubbing his hands over his face like he couldn't bear the weight of it anymore. He was done, and I could see it in the way he sat there, exhausted and defeated. "I don't know what to do," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "I thought I could handle it, Mike, but I can't. I can't keep it all together." That's when the anger I had been holding back for so long began to rise again. How could he let it get this far? I wanted to scream at him, tell him how many times I tried to warn him, how many times I tried to give him advice. But that wasn't going to help. Yelling at him wasn't going to fix the mess he made. "I know," I said quietly, the anger turning into something else, a mixture of disappointment and frustration. "But it's not too late. We can still fix this. We'll fix it together." For the first time in weeks, I saw a flicker of hope in his eyes. It was a small thing, almost imperceptible, but it was there. He wasn't giving up. Maybe he had made mistakes. Maybe he had failed. But there was a chance to turn it around. We spent the next few days together, long hours, working side by side, rebuilding the relationships Alex had destroyed, cleaning up the mess he had made. It wasn't easy. Every decision felt like a weight pressing down on me, but I knew I couldn't back down. I couldn't let him fail again. But with every step forward, I felt something else rising in me, too. A realization that I wasn't just doing this for the company. I was doing this for me. I had given everything to this business. I had sacrificed everything, and now I wasn't going to watch it die. Not without a fight. As we worked, I began to feel the pressure lift. Little by little, things started to fall back into place. We won back some of the clients we lost. The staff started to trust us again, seeing that we weren't just running from the problems we had created. We were facing them head-on. But the damage had already been done, and I couldn't shake the feeling that things would never be the same. Still, I kept pushing forward, working tirelessly to get the company back on track. Because in that moment, I realized something that hit harder than anything else. It wasn't just about fixing the business, it was about fixing myself too. This had always been my life, my legacy, and I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my brother, take that away from me. A few weeks into the recovery process, things seemed to be stabilizing. The company was slowly pulling itself together. Clients were starting to come back, and morale, while still fragile, was improving. Alex and I worked long hours side by side, rebuilding the trust that had been broken, making decisions together. There were still moments of tension, moments where we clashed, but there was also an unspoken understanding between us now. We were both fighting for the same thing, the survival of the company we had once dreamed of building together. But even in those moments of calm, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. I could feel it in the way Alex avoided certain conversations, in the way he shut down when I tried to talk about the future of the business, our business. I wanted him to be involved, truly involved, in shaping its future. But all he seemed focused on was the present, on fixing what had already been broken. He wasn't interested in the long-term plan, the bigger vision. He was just trying to put out fires. It wasn't until one particular evening that I realized how deep the divide between us had become. We were at a meeting with an important potential client, one that could turn things around for good. The stakes were high. I could see the pressure in Alex's eyes as we sat across from the client, and I knew this was his moment to prove he could handle this. But as the meeting progressed, I noticed him starting to fumble. His words weren't as clear as they should have been. His responses were vague, lacking conviction. I could feel the tension building in the room. The client wasn't buying it. And neither was I. In that moment, I knew. I had spent so much time trying to trust him, trying to give him space to prove himself, but the truth was clear. Alex wasn't ready. He didn't have the same passion for the business I did. He wasn't cut out for the long hours, the attention to detail, the constant pressure to make the right decisions at every turn. I could feel the weight of the responsibility falling back on me. So, without thinking, I took over the meeting. I spoke directly to the client, reestablishing the confidence we had almost lost. I saw the shift in the room, Alex watching me, silently, as I took charge. And I knew, deep down, that this was the moment I had been avoiding. The moment I had to face the truth, not just about my brother, but about myself. When the meeting ended and the client left, I walked back into the office with a heavy heart. Alex didn't say anything at first, but I could feel the disappointment radiating from him. He knew it too. The reality had hit us both. He wasn't ready for this, and I wasn't sure if he ever would be. It wasn't just about him stepping aside. It was about me realizing that I had to take the reins again, for the company, for my family, and for me. I had to stop pretending that Alex could carry the weight of this business. The truth was, it was mine to carry, and always had been. But as I walked into the office later that evening, preparing to sit down with Alex and have the hard conversation, something unexpected happened. He was waiting for me. Sitting at my desk, a look of defeat in his eyes. "I messed up," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know. I wasn't ready. I didn't see how much it meant to you." I wanted to tell him it was okay. I wanted to tell him that we could fix it, together. But the truth was, I didn't know if we could. The damage had been done, and the realization settled deep in my chest. This was no longer about the company. It was about us. And I wasn't sure how to repair that. In the days following that meeting, things started to feel different. I took charge of the business again, but not in the way I had before. It wasn't about regaining control. It was about finding a new balance. A balance between trusting Alex and holding him accountable, between pushing forward and acknowledging that things couldn't go back to the way they were. I didn't want to leave him behind. I didn't want to let the rift between us widen any further. But I also couldn't ignore the truth. The company wasn't a game. It wasn't just about family anymore. It was about survival. And if Alex wasn't ready to give it everything, then it would fall apart, just like it almost had. I gave him a choice: take a step back and let me handle the day-to-day decisions or leave entirely and find something else to do. I told him I needed someone who could focus, someone who was willing to put in the same sacrifices I had made. He chose to step back. It wasn't easy for either of us, but it was the only way we could move forward. I could see the hurt in his eyes as he made that decision, but there was also a sense of relief in him. Maybe he had known all along that this wasn't his path. Maybe he had been trying to live up to something he wasn't meant to be. I didn't know what would happen to our relationship after this. We had gone through something that no family should have to experience. I had watched my brother tear down everything I had built only to watch him fail. I had felt betrayed, helpless, and angry, but I had also learned something important. I learned that sometimes even the people you love the most can't carry your vision for you. And sometimes you have to let them go in order to keep moving forward. The company? It survived. We managed to rebuild it, brick by brick, taking lessons from the mistakes we made. But the price of that survival was something I couldn't ignore. Family bonds were tested, and some were never fully repaired. But through it all, I learned the most difficult lesson of all, that I couldn't save everyone, no matter how much I wanted to. As for Alex, we don't talk much anymore. He found his own path, and I found mine, but I still remember that night, the night everything changed, and I wonder sometimes if things would have turned out differently if I had just trusted him from the start. But then, I remind myself, this was never about trusting him. It was about trusting myself. And I had to do what was best for me, even if it meant letting go of the past. We both learned the hard way, but at least we learned. And for me, that was enough.